The Apprentice. Written and read by Ken Johnson. Episode 7. Theodore couldn't see Rayner. He looked around the car park and saw a young man standing on a box behind a Revolt Party poster. Vote Rose. X. The poster read. Mr. Rose was warming to his subject. When you find rabbits in your cabbage patch, what do you do about them? 8 people stood in the car park listening disconsolately to Turner Rose, the man who was to be the Revolt Party candidate in the next election. They wore brown and black badges, and they buttoned up their coats and pulled their collars up to keep out the evening chill. It would have been hard, Theodore mused, to imagine a less revolutionary crowd, or a smaller one. Do you welcome them? Let them eat as much as they want, and build a luxury hutch with air conditioning and maid service to ensure that they enjoy their stay? The crowd shook their heads. They didn't, and they wouldn't. A man in a grey overcoat ventured, "Shoot them," and a middle-aged lady with ginger hair added, "Make them into a casserole with onions and carrots." "Well, that's a bit of an extreme remedy," said Mr. Rose. "Perhaps, and a couple of tablespoons of peas," said a younger lady with a black and brown scarf. "No," said the overcoat, "peas don't go with rabbit. You could try tomato." "A dash of Worcester sauce might give it a bit more taste," said a young man whose black hair looked as though a bird had made his nest in it. Realizing, too late, that his chosen metaphor wasn't evoking the imagery that he expected from his audience, Mr. Rose tried to continue. "I mean, you don't want to kill them just to keep them out." "No, you don't," said the overcoat. "You've never so much as seen a rabbit, have you? You've got to shoot 'em. You can't run after them with a catapult, grab 'em by the back legs and ping them away over the hills and into the Cromarty Firth. If you don't shoot 'em, they'll eat everything in the entire allotment, and then they'll start on the plot next door to yours." "I still say you should put peas in it," said the scarf. "Listen to authority. No casserole can be considered complete unless it's got peas in it. It was Egon Ronay what said that, I think." "Gordon Ramsay," said a man who looked about 40 and wore a cricket club blazer. "I saw him saying it on TV." He nodded sagely and went on. "Egon Ronay died in 2010. "Well, he said it before he died," said the scarf. "Let me take a different example," Mr. Rose began, but a cry of "Don't change the subject" from the overcoat unnerved him. "This is as lively as I've ever seen them," said Rayner. Theo jumped. He hadn't seen her in the crowd. "Hello, I wondered where you were." "I was keeping an eye on things," she said, "and this is as lively as they've ever been, so I don't think they'll be marching around the town with blazing torches, smashing windows, setting fire to buildings, and impaling one another on pitchforks." "Let us march around the town," called Mr. Rose, evidently having abandoned his speech for the evening, chanting, as always, "I am as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it any more." "I'm as mad as a hatter, he means," Rayner muttered. "One seat on South Lanarkshire Council, and he thinks he holds the world in thrall." "I'm sure I've heard that mantra somewhere before," said Theo. "It's not original," said Rayner, "but it's rhythmic, and it's what people want to hear." "Forward together, follow me," cried Mr. Rose, leading the chant. "I'm as mad as hell." A light drizzle began. The small crowd took up the chant and began to amble gently down the road, looking mostly at their shoes and muttering. I am as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it any more, as if they didn't want anyone to notice. You and I, Rayner explained to Theo, walked around up after them just in case all hell breaks loose. I don't think it will. Neither do I, but it beats standing in the rain outside Butte House. You mean you actually turned down the chance to stand in the rain outside Butte House in order to come here, only because you were going to be here? That's very kind. Did they give you a scarlet tunic and a bearskin hat? They're safe. In my locker in Dunabek, said Rayner, beside the bagpipes. Do they suit you? Yes. Well, if they really existed, they would make me look like the guardian of the underworld, shouting, Halt! Who goes there, friend or foe? At the milkman. Theodore wandered back from the bar. He put the glass of amber wine onto the table in front of Rayner, stood the brown ale in front of his chair and sat down. Thanks, Rayner said. As she relaxed, a smile lit up her face. They touched their glasses. Cheers. So, Theo, now that you've trudged around town for half an hour in the company of the revolt party, what do you think of them? Walking around town in the drizzle, Theodore had been thinking more about whether the rain was going to become colder or heavier, and about whether Rayner would make time to have a drink together afterwards, and he hadn't really thought about the revolt party. They know how to make casseroles. They don't know how to keep rabbits out of their cabbage patches. They think Egon Ronay was a controversial orator unless it was Gordon Ramsay, and I guess they're as mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore. But I don't really know what it is, and I'm not sure I'd have noticed how angry they were if they hadn't told me. Rayner sipped the wine. Delicious. Now that really is something special. Malmsey. It's a specialty here. Noah's wife got herself so tanked up on it that Noah, Shem and Japheth had to carry her into the ark. Why didn't they just put her onto a taxi? Because there weren't any taxis back in those days, Theo explained. Only arks. It tootled around the floodwater for 40 days and eventually landed beside the curb at number 3 Uruk Gardens, Gilgamesh, where the driver charged her 15 bob for the ride and 10 shillings extra for taking all her pets with her. Plus the traditional 15% tip, Rayner added. Making a total of £1 8 shillings and 9pence, said Theodore, before he could stop himself. Still the mathematics graduate hours after the end of his shift. God's truth. Rayner was astonished. How did you do that? I didn't, said Theo. I mean, I didn't really do anything. I can see the numbers. They're still there in digits like the neon signs you see in hairdressers' shop windows, except instead of no appointment necessary, it says £1 8 shillings and 9pence. He pointed at the invisible numerals in the empty space on the table 2 feet in front of him, in between the beer mat and the bottle of brown ale. £, 1 8 9. There's some dust floating in the air, sparkling a bit, but it's a gift, said Theo. Like other people see ghosts or unidentified flying objects or surefire business opportunities. I've always had it. Rayner took a couple of deep breaths. I've never come across anything like this. What happens if she pays the driver with a £5 note? £3 11 shillings and 3pence change, and yes, I can see it. And you could do that ever since your first day at school? Rayner asked. I remember the boy who sat next to me asking what the answer to some simple question was, 5 plus 4, that sort of thing. And I told him to read the question and write down the numbers that appeared in front of him. He had no idea what I was talking about. That was when I found out that nobody else could see them. What happened? The little bastard asked the teacher about the numbers that appeared in front of me, and they dragged me off for a drugs test.